Welcome back. Now we're turning our focus to the Lagos Chamber of Commerce. It is the foremost private sector group in Nigeria since 1888, with over 1,750 corporate members, accounting for an estimated 70% of industrial output, 70% of general commerce, and 75% of financial services in the country.
Amazing.
That's a lot of percentages, isn't it?
70%, that's an A.
It shows how important they are. Over the last 120 years, LCCI have emerged as the leading voice of the private sector through its sustained public policy advocacy. Through its public service advocacy, stakeholders engagement, and trade promotion activities towards creating a conducive investment arena and prosperous economy. To look at LCCI with us this morning, it's my pleasure to welcome Dr. Vincent Nwani, who is the Director of Advocacy and Research.
Good morning.
Mr. Nwani, looks like you have no other job than to be coming on Sunrise. And he has come along with the Assistant Director, Corporate Services, Mr. Mayowa Olanihu.
Thank you. Good morning.
Good morning. As well as Mr. Williams Oda, who's the Head of Membership Management.
Morning. Thank you.
Morning, and thank you very much for coming. Now, let me begin with our customer here, Dr. Nwani. Please just give us, in a nutshell, what the main activities of the Chamber of Commerce are.
Okay, in your intro, you've really said it all, that we are the foremost Chamber of Commerce in Nigeria, and also in Africa.
Would like to repeat that.
Yeah.
No,
And also in Africa, the second in Africa.
Africa?
Yeah.
Rub it in.
It's important we mention that.
Okay.
You know, and over the last 128 years, we have become the leading voice of private sector in Nigeria and also in Africa by extension. You know, that tries to summarize what the Lagos Chamber is all about. Then what do we do and how do we do them? One of them is trade facilitation, making sure that businesses happen through different framework networking. The famous Lagos International Trade Fair, we hold that once every year during November. You know, it's organized by the Lagos Chamber of Commerce. Over the last 30 years, my colleague will maybe talk more on that later. We make sure that businesses across different sectors do businesses, you know, and in a conducive or fairly conducive environment. Like you mentioned, about 1,750 members across all sectors. My colleague will also be talking about that later. We have we champion and we keep on championing different policy, business policy advocacy in Nigeria, in port. Of course, the foreign exchange issue that have been raging over the last 9 months, we're in the forefront of that, and we're still doing what we're doing. Trade facilitation through inward and outward trade mission. Last year alone, we brought in trade mission into the country and also take trade and businesses out of the country, about 300 cases across the world. You know, these are things we do. We engage the government through memorandum, through our regular press releases, and even one-on-one engagement with authorities at federal, at state level to make sure that businesses are supported, businesses are groomed. We have a strong training department because skill is a very important issue in the business world. So we have different entrepreneurship programs and training. My colleague will also be giving details about that as we move on.
Dr. Nwani, before we go back, before we go to Mr. Mayowa, you've talked about LCCI foremost, and yet we still look at our economy as relevant as the work you've been doing is. There are some who will say, hey, you're the leading private sector driven concern as regards to relating with the government, yet we don't see our economy driven by the private sector as it should be. How is that so? Is it that the government at the different times, I mean since 1888, that's a long time. So is it that the government at the different times hasn't really been listening as they should to the Chamber of Commerce?
Well, maybe it would have been worse than this without the Lagos Chamber of Commerce, you know. But we can actually do more. Government listing, government.
Or is the Chamber of Commerce not
doing
communicating as it should?
We will leave that for the public to judge. But in our own personal measurement, we're doing a lot, but we can still do better, and that's exactly why we're here, to use this opportunity to call the other private sector group and even the government to listen to us more, because some of the predictions, for example, we made last year about the approach of government, especially the central bank, towards the management of foreign exchange since July 3 last year, unfortunately have finally crystallized to the crisis we have in that space now. You know, so that explains the what we're doing and how government is receiving that. But on many occasions, and which we can cite instances, we've been able to resolve serious issues with the government, the listing, and we work collaboratively, and the country moved positively. 2 years ago, we were judged one of the largest economy in Africa. You know, of course, the private sector have to take glory for that. That is where.
Mr. Oda, let me bring you in here.
Okay.
What is the benefit for, okay, let's say I'm a member of the LCCI now.
Yeah.
What are the benefits that accrue to me from my membership?
Okay. The Lagos Chamber of Commerce and Industry, as a chamber, is a springboard for any serious business, you know, to leverage on in order to achieve its purpose of being in business. A very good example, you know, is that being a member of the chamber, we feed you with information. You know, so we make business information available to you at very little or no cost. Recently, we had 2016 Economic Outlook. Private concerns.
There's a cost to it.
Yeah, private.
But I'm a member, and I'm sure that are there annual dues that members pay?
Little or no cost.
Yes.
When you say little or no cost, it's relative.
Let me give you an example. Let me give you this example. I won't mention name. A body, you know, had a similar program, and they charge 125,000, and we charge less than 20,000 to non-members, and about 10,500 to members. You know, so that's value added. You know, so that's just a part of it. You know, in addition also to, we make tender information, FGM tender information available to our member at no cost. You know, in addition to that as well too, we collaborate with multilateral organizations, international institutions, you know, to add value to our member. Sometimes
are you also involved in the, how do you say now, bringing of foreign direct investment?
Yeah.
So you help your members to hook up.
Yeah. A very good example is we have trade missions, inbound trade missions coming into the country, and when they come, the first port of call usually is the Lagos Chamber of Commerce and Industry.
And unusually,
you know, and when they come, they want to meet their members so that, you know, they can form partnership, they can collaborate. You know, so we are very key in that area, you know, in collaborating with foreign businesses, you know, and our members, and helping them bridge the gap, forming partnership, joint venture, you know, in order to grow our economy.
And how successful has that been, linking local businesses with trade missions coming from abroad, which actually result in business partnerships? It
has been very fruitful and very successful.
Okay, on a scale of 1 to 100,
1 to 100,
what would you say?
About 65–70%.
You're giving yourself an A again.
Yeah. Okay. Let me bring in Mr. Olanihu. Dr. Wani mentioned the issue of skill, especially, of course, in the private sector. It's now a major issue. How is the chamber helping to deal with this seeming shortfall?
Good. See, the problem of skill gap in our factories and industries is becoming very serious today. And the reason, that's not where we're going now, but what the Lagos Chamber is doing, we're doing so much in that area, several. But I'll mention about 6, 7, 8 of what we are doing. Number one, because of the skill problem we have in our factories, the Lagos Chamber has gone ahead to collaborate with the Ministry of Industry and Commerce in Germany, the AHK, to upscale the skill of our boys in the factories, to upscale the skill of our boys in the offices, so that by the time...
In what way? Are they coming here to train them?
Yes, they come in here. We just finished a 3-day workshop on that. The Germans are actually coming here. You know, in Germany, we have the strongest economy in Europe. And the secret of that is the dual vocational training that they give their boys, that they give their girls.
Which means what?
Which means we train them in the offices, in the classrooms. We now bring them back to the factories to really give them the practical training that they need to know. So we take them out of being professors of business administration in class and not even knowing how to manage a barbering salon. So they must do the theory part, they must do the practical part. Practical part even takes 75% of that, and the classroom part, 25%. So we've started that since last year, and we are on the second phase now, going forward. We run through a program we call mentoring program. And as my colleagues have said, almost everything we do at Lagos Chamber of Commerce is either at no cost or at very seriously subsidized rates.
Yeah.
So the mentoring is totally free.
Okay.
The German dual vocational training program I've talked about is totally free. Mentoring, we bring them from everywhere.
Now, are these programs open to the general public or strictly for your members?
Now, they are open to the general public. You know, the GDVT, for example, the German dual vocational training, when we started last year, we said, okay, members enroll. But we thought about it that, look, if we upscale the skill of members, companies alone, then the people that are not members still keep giving us the substandard products. So we opened it up. And this year, as I speak, we have admitted